We're here with
So-
Senator John.
Go ahead. I won't talk until you
I
ask me. Go ahead.
know. Right. We're here with Senator John Velis, and today we're going to talk about the situation in the Commonwealth's homes, health centers for veterans. Senator Velis, we all know what happened at the Holyoke Soldiers' Home. The tragedy, the worlds that disappeared. There's been reports on mismanagement, on this and that. You went recently to Chelsea's Soldiers, a healthcare facility. What is going on with these places that are supposed to take care of veterans?
Yeah. So first, thank you. I mean, I'm so happy when people ask about this topic, because when you really think about it, the populations that both homes serve, Holyoke and Chelsea, we're truly talking about what I consider to be the most selfless population there is. Even today, we've got a nation where less than 0.5% serves their country. So kind of overarching all of this in big picture, the one concern I have is, well, if this is how we show our veterans we value their service, this is what they have to look forward to if for whatever reasons they need to go to a place to get some assisted living. I think it speaks volumes about where we are as a society. And I would additionally add that Massachusetts is a state that historically has always led the pack on veterans advocacy, and rightfully so. I mean, the list goes on and on and on about things we've done on behalf of veterans. But in my opinion, it is impossible to, on the one hand, claim that you are number one in veterans advocacy, and then have this recurring challenge with our state's 2 veterans homes. So obviously Holyoke, we are all aware of what happened there. So pushing that aside just temporarily, because I'll never push it aside for that long. Chelsea Soldiers Home, this really got started about a month ago when the Inspector General's office wrote a letter to the outgoing administration of Charlie Baker saying, what is going on in Chelsea? We've got reports of staff just being completely disgruntled through no fault of their own. We've got reports of veterans sleeping in their own urine and feces. We've got reports of rooms with everything from bugs to, again, feces, urine, and everything. Just entirely unacceptable. So from my standpoint, the first thing that I did was, okay, let's get down there. First and foremost, let's ascertain whether or not there are still veterans in these most horrific of horrific circumstances. And we went there, and needless to say, and I think surprise to no one, I mean, if the state would have a bunch of lawmakers come in there and those conditions were still existing, I think we'd have to have their heads examined, to be quite honest with you. So to the surprise of no one, it was in very good condition. So we had gone to all the rooms there was reports of all of the urine, the feces, et cetera, but they cleaned that up. So let me just get to the bottom line of where we are. My job right now as the chairperson of the Senate working group on the Soldiers' Home. So just by way of background, when we passed the Soldiers' Home oversight bill this past legislative session, we had the, I think, wherewithal to say, issues are still going to come up. They always will. And we just need to be in a better position to deal with them when they come up and respond rapidly and fastly, because we all know Massachusetts, like all lawmaking bodies, has a long history of passing laws with unintended consequences. So we created this working group. I have fully kind of mobilized this working group. And my main task right now is to determine if what happened at Chelsea, it was a one-time thing. And I don't think it is. Spoiler alert, I don't think it is. Or it's more of a systemic problem, something that is so deeply embedded in the structure of that facility that we need to break it down top to bottom. I am in the midst of that entire process right now. This week, I'll be meeting again with the Inspector General's office. I'll be meeting with the administration, the new Secretary of Health and Human Services, to ask some very pointed questions and to see really where we're going. The Healy administration came in and they took what I think is a positive step. They immediately fired the superintendent, and speaking to them pretty at length about this, it was, look, There's been too many reports. We're not doing an investigation. There's enough already to fire the superintendent. I think that was the right decision based on what I know. But what I will tell you is just from leadership 101, a lot of times where there's to think that it's one bad actor or one insufficient actor in many instances is wishful thinking. So my job is to kind of do a whole nuts to bolts investigation, go back, report on this, file legislation, and fix it if it needs to be done legislatively. Or, and this is where I'm going to praise the Healy administration, I have been in constant contact with them about what I am finding, their thoughts, them getting my thoughts. So I have every confidence that when I come back to them with my ultimate findings on what's going on in Chelsea, that they will move swiftly to implement many of them.
Senator, we all know this. Every Memorial Day, it's a parade, it's a celebration, the whole works. It's like this. It's like performance, because behind it, there's nothing. You take the United States has an especially vulnerable population of veterans, whether by age or by injury, and we as a society turn our backs on them. So, is it politically what needs to happen? Because obviously putting, political appointments, which is what happened at the soldiers' home here, because Bennett used to be the DA for Hampden County, and his son, okay, let's put him in. And this is to say nothing of what kind of person he is. I'm just saying, why are these positions politicized and incompetent people put in these positions? And, this is not something that you or your committee can go out alone.
Yeah, no, but you raise a lot of good points. Just kind of initially what you said, there's nothing that kind of drives me more crazy than on Veterans Day and Memorial Day. Everybody loves veterans and everybody loves our service members that were lost. But, really every day we should be honoring that sacrifice. Again, in particular, because less than 0.5% are serving. So if you think about how small the segment of the population is that's doing a whole lot of, quite frankly, fighting the nation's wars on behalf of everybody else. And that raises a whole host of issues. I'm a really big proponent of this idea that this military civilian kind of this divide is growing. There used to be a day and age not that long ago when you could walk into a room and say, all the veterans or all the people here who have family members that are veterans, raise your hand. And the majority of people would raise their hand. And that's not the case anymore. So it's this civilian military divide that's happening and widening. And because less people, I think, are familiar with what that military sacrifice means, there's more of a, you want to know what? I don't really understand much about what makes a veteran different from just, an ordinary person. And there's a lot that goes in to being a veteran, whether it's things you're exposed to, look, there's even issues like military sexual trauma that doesn't get talked about, that happens far more frequently there than it does here. And then we've got folks who have suffered this. They come back into the civilian population. They haven't been treated. All the mental health issues, the substance use issues, the what you've been exposed to. And we really, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm getting closer and closer to thinking that there should be some type of mandatory service requirement in America. And I want to be very clear here. I'm not saying that it's the military. It could be the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, volunteering in inner cities, because that virtue of wanting to serve and putting the benefit of others in front of yourselves, if you have such a small percentage of the population doing that, there's a lot of consequences of that. And one of them is that folks who, through no fault of their own, just based on decisions they've made, aren't necessarily aware of what that sacrifice means. So it's easier to just say, just another home, no big deal. And that's a really big problem that a lot of people, myself included, are spending a lot of time thinking about, that military civilian divide that really is plaguing our country. And the irony of this is that never before in the history of this country has America had more threats facing it, from the sea, from the land, from space, from cyber attacks. So we just do not want to be in a position where, a young man or a young woman or whoever is contemplating joining the military, and they kind of look out and they say, what's in it for me? People join the military for any number of reasons. But if we develop a reputation as a nation doesn't value that sacrifice, we're heading down a really dangerous path.
Yeah, and going back to that question, what's in it for me? What I assume a lot of people see is, oh, I'm going to put my life on the line. I'm going to be away from my loved ones. And if anything happens to me and as I need help, well, maybe the systems don't work really well on my behalf.
Absolutely.
It's a hard sell. It's almost like, with all respect to car dealerships everywhere, the car is really shiny and worth 40 grand when you take it out of the lot. Now it's whatever, 30 or 20 grand.
You know what? I really like that analogy though. I really like that analogy. We need to do better. And look, a big part of this, and I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole now, but I think a big part of this is education as well. Teaching civics and history to our students so they understand, right, what it means. I mean, to me, I look back fondly coming up in the Westfield public schools where every Memorial Day, veterans would come in, and I used to look at them and just envy and revere them. And I credit that for a lot of me wanting to join the military. And even that's going away. And it's like, you can't, if we start moving away from that service, I always tell people, like, America has a lot of challenges. But if our military starts to kind of break down from within, that has always been my main indicator and predictor of when you will truly start to see the implosion of America. And my hope, my prayer is that I never see it ever in my lifetime, and certainly beyond. But we've got a lot of work to do to kind of push back on any number one of these things. And the main thing we can begin by doing that with is ensuring that when we have homes like this that are tasked with supplying kind of the respite for the final days of a service member's lives, if we can't give them the thank you for your service, we applaud you and are grateful as a nation. Really, what are we as a nation? So, I can finish with this and say that, as long as I'm involved in this political thing, I'm never going to stop ensuring that these organizations and these state places, it's important to remember that unlike a private nursing home or unlike a private institution, these facilities bear the flag of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So that is a perpetual stain on the flag of this great state. And I, for one, am not okay with that. And I'm not going to let that happen.
That is our POW members table. It is set for 1